Well, with me in the studio this hour, Asha Fredman is the director for the Misgav Institute for National Security. Welcome, Asha. Good to have you with us. We're also joined by Ruth Wasserman Lande, former member of the Knesset and research fellow, also at the Misgav Institute for Strategic Affairs. So welcome to you both. So let's talk about Syria. This new transitional government, they're putting out a very moderate face to the world. What do you make of it, both of you? Asha first.
They are indeed, and it's clear their leadership knows how to speak to the West. They've had some experience with Western media. The question is not what they're going to do on day one, because as we heard on day one, the Syrian people are not looking to go back to an atmosphere of fear, an atmosphere of coercion. On the other hand, we have to assume that these people who come from extremist Islamist backgrounds aren't going to change their spots in a day and a week. And the real fear may be that over time, we will see an encroachment or the enforcement of Sharia law and a more extreme version of Islam in Syria. We have to recall also, though, that the new leadership, Al-Julayni's people, are going to be looking for Western funding, for European funding to rebuild Syria. They're likely to get it, especially if they're welcoming back Syrian refugees. That may also impact the way they choose to govern Syria, their need for funding from the West.
And we are hearing from inside Syria, and there is a lot of unconfirmed video going around of reprisal attacks. That is the big fear, isn't it, that the new leadership will carry out revenge attacks on their enemies?
So I think what Asha said is very true in the sense that they're looking to, first of all, be off the sanctions list. And in order to do so, not only are they welcoming back the Syrian refugees from all over the world, but they also need to sound and seem moderate. Also, I think there is a fatigue amidst the people in general, and perhaps even amidst the fighters themselves, from war. I mean, they've been at it for so many years, and people are really flabbergasted at what they had to endure during the Assad regime. And in order to put things in place and to get those, let's say, constitutions and institutions as well in place, and in order to get that money into Syria, as Asha had said, I think that they're doing a pretty good job in seeming to be very moderate. Why do I say that? Because radical Islam has proved itself to not be able to change, because inherently, ideologically, deep down, it is impossible to accept a non-religious entity.
It's a worldview, isn't it?
It's a worldview, and it's a deeply ingrained worldview.
Okay, all right. Thank you both for now. Just real quick, Asha Fredman, I want to ask you, because the US administration said today that there was now an opportunity to completely destroy all of Syria's chemical weapons stockpiles. Do you think the US will be looking to outsource that job to the IDF?
I think so. I think the U.S. is not looking right now to get engaged in another regional conflict, but Israel has three priorities very quickly. One is to destroy the strategic weapons in Syria and prevent them from falling into the wrong hands. The second is to keep a careful eye on an uprising in Islamist attacks or Islamist activity inspired by their success in Syria, and that could be in Iraq, it could be in Jordan, that could be in Judea and Samaria, in the West Bank. And the third is the opportunities that have now been created vis-a-vis Iran. Iran is weaker than it's ever been. Iran knows that in a Trump administration, it's likely to be facing a maximum pressure campaign. It may attempt now to break ahead towards a nuclear weapons capacity. That doesn't mean that Israel is really intending to carry out the strikes, but Iran is more vulnerable than it ever has been.
All right, okay. The SDF were America's allies. They defeated ISIS. Have they now been abandoned?
Well, it remains to be seen, because, first of all, the Turks have been concocting this revolution in Syria, partly in order to repress the Kurds, in order for a similar press for autonomy in Turkey not to happen, as well as in other places. That's number one. Second of all, and very importantly, I think it's very significant to understand the role of Turkey in general in Syria. Wanting to take a stronghold of Syria in practice is not only related to the Kurds, but also to having the possibility of energy corridors that would surpass the elevated position of the Islamic Republic of Iran. So to create alternative routes for streamlining energy towards Europe and being in the center of that, the magnet of that, and in actual fact becoming again, perhaps not the Ottoman Empire, but the greater Turkey, that's what is standing behind the Turkish, let's say, resolution.
The head of the Sunni Muslim world, essentially.
Precisely. And that puts the Kurds in a very precarious position, even more so than before, for allies like the United States as well.
Okay, thank you, Ruth. Asher Fredman, just a quick word from you then. It is remarkable, the arsenal that Syria, the Assad regime, managed to build up with the help of Hezbollah, Iran and Russia, of course.
Syria was a key ally of Iran, of Russia, a key element of both those countries' strategies to project dominance in the region towards the Mediterranean. And indeed, they supported, in fact, the only reason Assad was able to survive for so long was because of Russian and Iranian support. His fall was too quick to hide most of the evidence. But I think a lot of the money is in bank accounts in his and his wife's name, probably in Qatar and other countries around the world. But yes, of course, we've discovered the extent to which those countries supported Assad's military buildup.
And Ruth, are you worried that Iran might race towards going nuclear now? It is so much under threat. It's got nothing left to lose, really.
I'm worried about two things. First of all, with its back to the war, it will race to get nuclear power, because it needs to sort of gain face again after losing it, losing the Assad regime, losing the Hezbollah, losing the Hamas, and so on. However, I don't think they've just given up just yet. And what I'm also worried about is that they are negotiating currently with the rebels. Let's not erase what they think they can still do. And despite the tension and despite the animosity, offer to buy the possibility of continuing to transfer weapons via those exact tunnels we just saw.
Ruth, Asher, thank you both. Asher Fredman and Ruth Wasserman Lande, both from the Misgav Institute for Strategic Affairs. Thank you for staying on. So, Ruth, as Balik was reporting there are a lot of things going on in the background. We have had these reports so many times before. Still 6 weeks to go before President Trump is sworn in. Are you hopeful of something moving in the next few weeks?
I'm hopeful. Very difficult to say that because I take into account that the families are hanging on every word that is being said about this issue. Horrific, inhumane situation in which people are being held completely against all international norms in captivity. And funnily enough, the world is not yelling on the top of their voices about this injustice. How hopeful am I? I'm not a little bit distrustful of the Hamas. They have not moved, in my humble opinion, since their wish to remain in the position that the entire IDF needs to move out of the Gaza Strip.
You don't believe those
the
reports that they've dropped that demand?
They have not dropped that demand.
Withdrawal.
In fact, they've declared that they have not dropped the demand, and that's why we are talking about a partial deal. And only when the entire IDF will withdraw, the rest of the hostages will be released. And this is very dangerous because one needs to trust the Hamas in order to have that partial deal. Very, very difficult to leave anyone behind and have only part of the hostages back.
All right, Asher.
I agree with my colleague Ruth's analysis. Hamas is obviously under a lot of pressure. The success of the IDF military operation, the threats from President Trump, from the incoming administration, they may be, let's be clear, if Israel were to withdraw from the Gaza Strip today, it may be worth it, it may not be worth it, but Hamas would retake the Gaza Strip within a short amount of time. Now, the devil's always going to be in the details. Israel may be willing to pause for 30 days, for 60 days, whatever it's being talked about, and Hamas may hope that that will allow it to survive. And if that allows a number of the hostages to be released, that's obviously horrible and tragic for those who are left behind, but it is an incredible blessing and joy for those who are released.
Young men, for example, would
young, the elderly, the sick, the American citizens. But we should be clear that if, in the framework of a deal, Israel leaves the Philadelphia corridor, within short order, Hamas will be able to rearm. And whatever you call it, a technocratic government, a PA government, whoever is officially in charge of Gaza, once Israel withdraws, it is likely that Hamas will be able to once again become the dominant force on the ground. And therefore, I think we're going to see Israel insist that it retains the right, like in Lebanon, to continue targeting Hamas terrorists and any attempts by Hamas to rearm and reestablish itself.
Okay, thank you both.
I think
yes.
if we may demand something that the international arena, and particularly the new administration, and this is my biggest hope, would do, is to put their foot down, exactly like incoming President Trump had said, and to make it very clear, because they do have leverages with Qatar, get all the hostages, not partly, out. He can do that. It is a possibility.
All hell will rain down, as he said.
Exactly. Let's see that hell raining down.
And we've not yet seen the Americans putting real pressure on Qatar, which is a huge...
At all, not
absolutely.
even a little bit. And the leadership of the Hamas are still held and sitting very comfortably in Qatar, despite all the declarations.
Okay, thank you both. Asha, we have seen terrorist attacks like this soar over the past 12 months, haven't we?
We have. As Hamas is growing weaker in Gaza, it is also looking to increase its strength and its influence in the West Bank. Also, as we head towards a battle over succession once Abu Mazen is no longer the leader, we see Hamas positioning itself. We see Iran, who's been weakened in Gaza and Syria and Lebanon, also looking to increase its influence in Jordan, in the West Bank, in Judea and Samaria. We also have to recall that the PA, the Palestinian Authority, continues to incite and pay salaries to terrorists, and this despicable terrorist who murdered this 12-year-old boy can look forward to a Palestinian Authority salary for the rest of his life.
Yeah, another failure of the US to put pressure.
Well, this
perhaps.
is exactly the attempts and the success of the Islamic Republic of Iran. It needs to save face. It has Jordan, which is a weak, relatively weak leadership, as well as the West Bank, which is a complete chaos. And what it's been doing for years is basically smuggling weapons via Jordan into the West Bank to strengthen Hamas and undermine Abu Mazen. And the fighting that we see between the two, the Hamas and the Fatah, this is the Islamic Republic of Iran in the West Bank.
Ruth, Asha, Misgab Institute's finest, thank you very much to you both. Great to have your analysis. Thank you.
Great to be here. Thank you.